Hi, this is Jen Chapin on Retrospectives with John Broughton on KC Radio 97.7 FM. Thanks for listening.
I like to linger in the closing.
Just to kick off, being part of a musical family, was it always considered inevitable that you would go into music as a career one day?
Not at all. It was always there, and certainly something I was exposed to, and I always loved music, but I think in a lot of ways differ in personality. I mean, from my dad and what I saw of his approach was something that I couldn't really imagine, just as far as his energy and drive and the hours he kept. And so on the one hand, I had this wonderful example, but then also, I didn't really see myself falling into that, and I wasn't sure if I had the drive and the talent, and so it was a process, of just basically realizing that, I sort of had to, that music was that important to me.
Sure. As a young girl, how aware were you of your dad's status as an artist?
Pretty aware in all its complexities, because my dad had the sort of kind of fame where it's like, for the people that knew him, he was just, huge, and they were amazed to be in his presence. And then there were the majority of people who hadn't necessarily heard of him or didn't really care, So, yeah. And I think that dichotomy was an issue for him, and something he was keenly aware of, and I think I was aware of that. It wasn't like, the kind of thing where I felt like I had some status by extension.
Did you encounter problems in your early days as an artist with promoters and venues wanting to promote you as the daughter of?
Well, I still encounter that. And,
do you?
It's not that it's part of the story, and what I always say is, you can say daughter of Harry, but that's not the only thing that you should say. Mm-hmm. Because at this point, I've been doing this for a long time. I have a lot of great press quotes that can be used. My music is very different. To describe me as Harry's daughter is really, it's not helpful, it's not descriptive, and it's part of the story. It's interesting for people. It's relevant. I'm proud of who I am.
Of course, yeah.
I don't hide it, but it shouldn't obscure the other thing.
Prior to making your career with music, you were teaching music. Was there a defining moment that prompted you to switch from one to the other?
No, there's never been a defining moment. It's, I was teaching with the idea that I was increasing my own knowledge and perspective and sensibility, and I was writing songs and putting together my band and doing performances on the side. So the two always went hand in hand, and just at a certain point, I couldn't really sustain a full-time teaching career along with a full-time music career.
Right. Are you still involved in teaching in any way now?
Yeah. Like, we're about to leave on a month-long tour tomorrow morning, and in that, I'll do several talks. It's sort of the combination of music, teaching, and activism. The fact that I'm active in a nonprofit organization and have been a spokesperson, and that I have that teaching background, they all sort of combine. So I'll be in front of a few churches. I'll be doing a lyric writing workshop at a public library. It's different combinations of things.
Would you say you were a confident stage performer right from the beginning?
I think I haven't been afraid of it, and I've never been really nervous. I was blessed in that some of my earliest performances were benefits and tributes for my dad, and that there was this sort of magical aura around the whole environment. So it wasn't like, just with the bar band while, people are ignoring you. I mean, I had that feeling of, pristine space and sort of magic air around the music from an early, as an early formative experience, and I think that stayed with me as a reference.
Uh-huh. Talk about your songwriting. How does the process work for you? Are you constantly carrying ideas around? Do you always have your songwriter's radar always up looking for ideas?
I basically go through long periods where I'm not so involved. I'm not really in that head. I mean, because unfortunately, my head gets so crowded with logistics, and the fact is that I have to do a lot of planning just to get the music out there. Emails and remembering. Okay, I need to call this person back, and this sound tech guy wants to know exactly about our needs, and that stuff. I don't really know how other people do it, because I have to really sort of have a relatively clear plate, I think, and or just like a real. I mean, I saw a quote once to the effect of, I write when the pain of not writing exceeds the pain of writing, and that kind of stuck with me because. Excuse me, there's a little whining in the background.
That's okay.
But because that's what it's like for me. It's like only when I'm just so conscious that it's been too long, and I really need to have something new, and that am I able to put myself in that headspace. But it's not always that there are burning ideas, in my head that I need to get down. I've sort of stopped beating myself up about that. There's a certain mystique put around the creative process of, like I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this song was fully formed, in my dreams. Like, well, that doesn't really happen for me. But oftentimes I will have a germ of an idea and I'll carry it around. I'll jot down a phrase. Or I'll have a melody. Sometimes I'm, sitting at the piano or at the guitar, and there's a chord progression. So I do start a song every which way. I don't have one particular method, and that works for me because I think if you're always into the same step by step, then you could end up writing stuff that sounds the same. And one thing that's really important to me is variety and providing, whether they want it or not, I feel like an audience should, get to go on a journey, and whether it's through putting on an album or listening to a show, that each song is its own little world.
There is a storytelling element to your writing, as most certainly there was with your dad. What do you think is the key element to good storytelling, other than obviously a good story?
Well, I think for my dad, it was much more linear, and he had a cinematic perspective. And,
yeah.
I think that sense of empathy is pretty crucial. Whether you're a novelist or a songwriter who's interested in stories.
What do you think is your greatest strength as a songwriter?
Oh gosh. I don't know. I know that I love music deeply, and that it has the power to be transcendent for me, and so I believe in it. And I believe that a song, it's never cynical for me. I believe that a song can be a real departure, and so I think that serves me, maybe.
Your recordings aren't overproduced in any way. The production seems to be kept relatively simple and uncluttered. Is that what you like yourself as a listener to music? To hear a song on its own merits?
I like every kind. I can appreciate a song that's totally ornate, and I can appreciate a song that's like as simple as it can be. And I think they all have their place in music, every degree. I think it depends what you're going for, and I definitely have some songs that have a lot of layers. They might have the net effect of sounding simple and uncluttered, but there's a lot of different elements that can make up production. So I like it all.
Do you have a strict pre-plan of what your aim will be in the studio each time you go in to record?
I think that I've learned to put the ingredients together, and the ingredients really are the musicians. To have a special chemistry, to have people whose decisions you trust. I'm not really interested in telling people what to play. I pretty much hire people because I love the decisions they make, and then once they're there and we're making music together, it's up to them. And we have certain interaction in a rehearsal, or if we're preparing a song to record, try a little more of this, a little less of that. But it's pretty minimal because, I've been really spoiled with playing with amazing players.
Do you like the studio environment?
Oh, I love it. It's not something I get to do every day, but it's tremendous fun. It's a really special thing that you just sort of, you just make a point of cutting out the rest of the world. And it's like, you could sort of say, I'm in the studio, and people know. like nothing else, they know that you're out. You're going under.
I believe the last record was recorded predominantly live in the studio, is that right?
Yeah, we really got the vast majority of what was what you hear, came down at the same time. We were all able to listen to each other and respond to each other, and it's the way that records used to be made. They're not made that way so much anymore.
Yeah. Does it take a certain amount of confidence in your own material and in the musicians around you to go into the studio that way?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I think you have to trust. You have to trust everybody, from the engineer to every element, or else. I suppose there's all different, like some of the great bands. They didn't necessarily get along as people, but they certainly believed in each other as musicians, and I think that's just necessary. Especially if you're like, I'm kind of a social musician. Like, I do the writing on my own, but as far as performing and putting a song together, I get so much of my energy and my inspiration from how other people interpret the song.
Now, I believe a lot of the most recent CD was written during the time leading up to the birth of your son. Did that influence the type of song you were writing?
In some ways, yes. I mean, some of the songs were written. There were a handful that were written long before I was pregnant. But there were a bunch of songs that were very literally influenced, like 2 songs, To the New. It was specifically about that sort of new pregnancy time when it's all kind of a dream, and you're just preparing as much as you can prepare for this complete mystery. And then Let It Show, I wrote. It was the last song I wrote for the album, just a few weeks before we recorded, and a few weeks more before Maceo was born, and that was a song that was, very specifically for him.
And have you managed to master the art yet of combining parenthood with a music career, or is that still a learning experience?
Well, I mean, as I mentioned, the songwriting part, I haven't figured that out yet, and that's going to be my challenge for 2007, is how to find 2 hours here and totally get in that headspace.
Yeah.
To be able to create. In a lot of ways, it's the touring part, at least for now. He's a year and a half. And we're about to embark on another experiment, but so far it's worked out great. That we can just bring him along and find babysitters on our route, and he enjoys the different environments, and it's been a lot of fun, and adds it's intense, but it takes that much more organization and planning, but that part's worked surprisingly well. Once he's in school, and I think the trajectory that we're going for career-wise anyway is that you're not necessarily doing a month of dates in a row, that you're more, having value-added dates on the weekends and things. So, that'll be good possibilities for.
And tell us the makeup of your live band and the background of your players there.
Well, they're from all over the States. In this case, the tour that we're doing, and what most of our touring is as a trio of acoustic bass, and that's my husband, Stefan Crump, and he's from Memphis, Tennessee, which a lot of people think of as the birth of the blues, and certainly the heart and soul of a lot of great American music. It was the home. People think of it mostly as where Elvis was from, but for me it was always about where Stax, the great record label where Otis Redding and Isaac Hayes and a lot of very special musicians got their start. He comes from Memphis, but he also, his mother is from Paris, so I think there's an international flavor as well. Jamie Foxx is a very close partner, and he plays electric guitar, not to be confused with the American actor. There's one X in his name, but and he hails from California, and similar to Stefan, it has a strong foundation in jazz, but has really such a deep understanding for so many other parts, particularly of American soul music and Latin music and rock and roll, and he's a little bit older than Stefan and me, and was in Berkeley and San Francisco, California during the heyday of the Grateful Dead and a lot of the influential psychedelic bands, and he was like a teenager and sort of living that life in the late 60s, early 70s. And there's a great drummer named Dan Reeser who plays on both the recent album Ready and the previous called Linger. And a lot of people might recognize his name if they looked on the credits in their Norah Jones album, because I always like to point out that I had him first, but he played on Come Away With Me, the big song.
Yeah.
And so he's very much in demand as a studio drummer, and a wonderful musician, just a huge amount of integrity. A great piano player named Peter Rendy, who I actually have known the longest because we were friends back in music school at Berklee College of Music. And he's been a very important collaborator, and I just sort of trust every note he plays. And that's really been the core group. With
the type of shows you're doing over there, is it mainly club or theatre venues?
Real combination. There's a phenomenon, I don't know if they have it over there, but the house concert,
yes.
which is which we actually have a few of those coming up on this upcoming tour, which can be really special. And some of them you can, have up to 80 people. Someone who has a particularly airy living room. And it's like you might not have the hugest audience, but the quality is so meaningful. People are really there. They tend to buy proportionally a lot more CDs than your usual audience. And it's just such an intimate connection, and it's such a mutual trust. You're sort of exposing yourself most often at house concerts without amplification. So you're just laying it out there.
Yeah, the house concerts are just starting to take off down here, but I believe they're huge over there in America.
Yeah, there's it's not something that like in the mainstream that people necessarily have heard of, but in that community itself, it's a special community, and people know each other. They know, oh, so and so, does concerts. If your schedule doesn't work to do this one, you should call up, this person, and it's great. It's a real labor of love for the presenters, for the hosts, as it often is for any a club owner these days, because it's not really the most obvious way to make money. And it doesn't always work out that way. It's like, you're usually making your money from selling alcohol if you do it, and then a lot of times I'm playing in coffee houses or places where they don't sell a lot of alcohol.
Yeah.
So it's like people do it because they love it, and so there's not really any outlet to demonize, the evil scumbag club owner that's trying to rip you off. It's like, you know what? They're having a rough time too.
One thing you have carried on from your dad is your involvement in the organisation that he founded, World Hunger Year. Tell us about that.
Well, I actually just yesterday passed the torch, which I'm very happy about, as I was chair of the board of directors for 2 terms. And one of my objectives in doing that was to, see what new leadership could be cultivated. Because at the time when I became chair, there weren't necessarily a lot of other people on the board who had the time or the commitment. And now there's, a lot of people who can, step up to the plate. But it's a wonderful organization. It's been around since 1975, and there are certain themes that have pervaded our work all throughout. The commitment to self-reliance, to helping people to feed themselves, the commitment to looking at the issues of social justice, to saying, okay, in this country there's a very charitable gung-ho spirit. It's great, and I'm sure it's similar in Australia, where it's like, okay, there's a problem, there's people in this community who don't have enough to eat. Well, darn it, we're going to rally together, we're going to have a food drive, we're going to get them some food, which is wonderful and important, and it's something that, internationally and nationally, and people do it, but what has to stay clearly in vision is that we have to question why people, and particularly in America, it's most people who wait on the line at a soup kitchen are working full time, or they're part of families that are working full time. So the essential social justice questions come into play. What is it about our food system? What is it about our economic system, in our wages that can allow people to need supplementary food even when they're, working honorable jobs. So we're looking at a lot of systemic questions. We're looking to be change agents. We identify what are the most effective, the most innovative programs that are helping people, everything from job training to community gardens to after-school programs for kids, financial literacy so that people aren't falling prey to predatory lending or other unethical practices that often afflict the poor. And then we're looking at trade policies, and we're part of some of the international discussions about farm reform and food sovereignty and food security, and that it's not a zero-sum game. So, what benefits farmers in Europe or Australia or especially for small family farmers or in the United States, is not doesn't necessarily need to, and most often everybody's interests are aligned, in ways that we don't always realize, and that's one of the things that Y is working on, new coalitions, new movements towards a food system that that it not only feeds the poor, but also, gives middle-class people a better opportunity to eat nutritious food that's not so heavily poisoned by pesticides, that's not so injected with high fructose corn syrup. I'm sure that in your country as well, there's, increased epidemics of obesity and diabetes, and this is a food system that's not working.
And musically speaking, Jen, is what's in the near future for you? Are there already plans afoot for the next album?
Well, I'm starting to think about it. Right now, I'm so much in the day-to-day of touring, and I'm feeling good about some of the momentum for trips that we can make this year. But definitely, around the end of this year or the beginning of the next, I want to start working on the new album. And one idea that is floating around is the idea of having that be a covers album. So, although I definitely have a lot of writing to do either way, just for sanity and to keep the flow going, it's possible that I might be interpreting other people's songs.
Oh, excellent. It's a forgotten art form, really. The song interpreter is a forgotten art form, really.
Yeah, I think I've gotten some really positive feedback for the times when I have, the ways that we've made different people's songs our own. So it's the kind of thing that makes me think, like, okay, because I'm always hesitant to do some of the songs I love because. First I'm trying to get my own tunes out there, but also it's like, okay, this song is so perfect, what could I possibly add?
Yeah.
But sometimes there is something, a way to take the song forward. So it might happen. I'm not guaranteeing it, but could be the next one.
Well, Jen, congratulations on the wonderful music you've made for us so far, and we certainly look forward
I appreciate that.
to what's
Thank
coming.
You. Well, I sure hope to get over there before too long, and bring the music down under.
That would be wonderful to see you down here.
Thank you.
All the best.
Thanks so much for calling and making this happen and finding me. It's an honor.
Our pleasure indeed.
Great.
Thanks a lot, Jen.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, take care.